Hello, everybody. It's Rabbi Gavriel. I've been inundated with a few different emails, and I've had people email, not email me, people, well, yes, email me, but also message me on Facebook, uh, interested in joining the Israeli army or the IDF, Israel Defense Forces. There's just a couple of these questions that I've archived in my email. What would I have to do? I'm not an Israeli citizen. Do you have to be Jewish? Blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, really, this question is coming from people outside of Israel who don't live here. I mean, if you live here, if you grew up here, military service is going to happen anyway. It's not something you really have to inquire about. Um, so I'm gonna. This is directed mostly, I think, to diaspora Jews. Um, yes, you can join. You can join the the IDF, without even becoming an Israeli citizen. It's not that common, but people do it. There's a program called the Mahal program, which they assist non-Israeli Jews in joining the IDF for a brief period of time. I think it's like 14 and a half to 18 months, something like that, in which you would be a regular soldier. Many of them serve in the Nachal Infantry Brigade, which is the brigade I served with during my mandatory service. I don't, for that particular program, I think you can't be any older than 24. And how it works is you would sign up, you would come here, you would become either a temporary or permanent resident, whatever, and they would help you figure out the steps. Uh, so basic copy, you do have to be Jewish. If you're a non-Jew, I mean, well, you have to be eligible for the law of return, even for that program. But let's say one of the persons that asked is he's from Sweden, which is unusual. He wants to join the IDF, and he is a Pentecostal Christian, according to. I'm not going to mention his name. I want to keep the guy's privacy. Unless you have a Jewish parent or grandparent, no. Generally speaking, you can't join the IDF. That at one point in 1948, the IDF took foreign volunteers who were not Jewish because there was a manpower shortage. That has not been the case ever since then. In 70 years, that has not been the case. We don't want to have the image of having an army made up of non-Jewish mercenaries doing our bidding for us. That's kind of the rationale for it. Of course, non-Jews that live here and have citizenship here may join the military if they want to. But generally, foreign non-Jews are not allowed to. You can join if you become a citizen. If you make Aliyah, you can join the army voluntarily even after the age of 24. You'll be a little bit more limited on what you can do. Can I become a pilot? That's one question here. No. With few exceptions, almost all of the pilots in the IDF were born here, are multi-generational Israelis. You have to pass a really rigorous background check, and plus if your Hebrew isn't fluent, you're going to have a hard time because it's extremely technical. So, I mean, generally speaking, I don't think it'd be possible for people that make Aliyah to become pilots. In what kind of shape do I have to be in? That depends on what you want to do. So you get a little bit of a choice. So when the Army first calls you up, you get what's called a tzav rishon, a first call up. It'll come in the mail, usually a big brown envelope. It'll come from your local draft board. There's several different draft boards throughout the country. When I first did this, I was living in Tiberias, which is in the Galilee. And that was where the local draft board was, where the Galilee was in Tiberias. So they'll send you a letter. Hey, it's coming time for your military service. You need to come on this specific date. And you show up and you show your invitation papers to the guard at the door, and they let you in. And then you do your physical, and you take a couple of different tests that measure like your intelligence, cognitive ability, that type of thing. And if you weren't born here, you'll also have to pass an oral Hebrew test. Should be like a panel of people trying to talk to you in Hebrew to kind of figure out what your level of Hebrew is, spoken Hebrew is. If it's not that good, don't worry. It's the Army will actually put you through a Hebrew course if you're not that good at it, if you can't speak it yet. It's an 8-week course, I believe. It's done before basic training. As far as physical fitness goes, again, it depends on what you want to do. If you're asking the question, it's already kind of an indicator that there's a problem. It's not like the U.S. military where you have to be able to do like a certain amount of push-ups and a certain amount of time from the get-go. Like they understand that it's a citizens army and not everybody is going to be in the best shape coming into it, but they will definitely get you in shape. I can promise you that. And again, it depends on what job you want. So when you go and you take all your testing and everything, they're going to give you a choice. They're going to show you a list of all the different jobs and units that you qualify for. And that's based on your medical profile. The highest is 97, which basically that qualifies you for any combat unit. And then there's different measurements for intelligence and everything. And based on those, they'll give you a list of jobs and units that you qualify for. They'll ask you to list your top 3 things that you want to do in order, greatest to least, because at the end of the day, the Army's needs come first, but they do want to give you some kind of preference, some kind of choice in where you serve. And they'll also ask you to list your bottom 3 jobs or 3 places you absolutely do not want to serve. Because the Army has figured out over several decades that having miserable soldiers doesn't bode well. At that point, you'll pick a job, whatever, and you'll sign a contract. Even though you were drafted, at least in my case, they'll make you sign a contract. And you'll get something in the mail confirming when you start, when your first day will be. At this point, between when you first visited the draft board for all the testing and the physicals and everything, and your actual draft date, you may be invited to something called a gibush. Gibush is not really an English term for it. The best way I could translate it is it's a selection tryout. There are certain units within the Israeli military that you have to volunteer for if you want to be a part of them. And you may get an invitation if you qualify for any of these units. You may get an invitation to attend a gibush, which is usually 5 days. It's extremely difficult. They're trying to weed out people who are not qualified. I attended one. I attended one gibush between my first call up and when I actually had to start the military. It was for the Israeli Navy's commando unit, basically our version of the Navy SEALs. And I was dropped on the first day because I broke my ankle. It was very, very difficult. So basically the whole point is to weed out people who are not serious about it. So there will be, probably with every draft cycle, there will be several thousand people who volunteer for these kind of units, usually very elite special forces units, that type of thing. And they will invite maybe 200 to a gibush, to a tryout, and maybe 100, maybe half of them will actually finish it. And out of that half that actually finished, maybe half of that number will be selected. So maybe 50 people will be selected to start training for that particular unit. And because the training for these units in and of themselves is so long and so rigorous, due to people dropping out voluntarily or getting injured, maybe 20 to 25 people will graduate in a year and a half to 24 months, depending on how long the training is. So it's pretty tough. And I didn't even make it past the first day. It's 5 days of continuous physical activity. There is no sleep in those 5 days. I mean, it's maybe 2 or 3 hours spread over that 5 days. It's minimal calories, and they want to see how you handle under the worst possible conditions. And this is not something you go to get in shape to, you go in the best shape of your life, and it still kicks your ass, basically. Like I said, only maybe half of the people finish it, and half of the people that finish it still won't be selected. So it's very, very tough. But if you do get invited to try out for a special unit or for the pilot program or for the submarine program or one of the intelligence units, you should probably try. I mean, if they're considering you enough to invite you, you should probably try. Okay, so yeah, once it's determined where you're going to serve, you're going to get notified. You'll get another envelope in the mail, usually, at least in my case, is what it was. It's going to say, hey, you start on this date. You have to be at this place at this time. Everybody starts their IDF service at the same place. It's called the Maytov Center in Ramat Gan, which is ironically enough the city that I just recently moved to. It's the IDF Central In-Processing Center. It's where every recruit goes for their first day of military service. Very often they will provide you transportation there from whatever city you're from. They'll give you a pass to ride the bus, or they'll even organize a bus from certain cities. Or you can have a friend or relative drop you off or take a cab, whatever. But you show up there with your papers and everything and the packing list. They'll tell you things you need to bring, like a toothbrush, whatever. And that's when the fun begins. That's when the yelling starts. They'll usher you into this building, and it's another round of medical checks, last-minute physicals, that type of things. You're going to get 3 shots, 3 vaccinations. Everybody is. Doesn't matter who or what your job is or anything. Everybody's going to get 3 different vaccinations. I can't remember what they're for, but you get 1 in each arm, and the third where it's going to make it difficult to sit for a couple of hours. They're going to take x-rays of your teeth, and they're going to issue you your ID tags, your dog tags, and your IDF ID card has your picture on it and your name, your rank, that type of thing. You'll be fitted for uniforms for the first time, which is really kind of a nightmare in and of itself because they never seem to have the size you need, no matter what. Yeah, the Israeli army has 2 sizes, too big and too small. You'll get a fatigue shirt, fatigue bottoms, boots. Depending upon which unit you'll serve in, you'll get either black or red boots. You'll get 1 plain colored beret to wear on your head, that type of thing. I remember you'll get what's called a himidan, which is this big duffel bag that the army basically gives to you. It belongs to you to carry all your crap in, all your stuff. And that thing will follow you everywhere. I still have mine. I actually use it for camping equipment now. And once that's all done, you'll be sitting there probably outside in your uniform, just waiting. I was there, once I was done being in processed, I would think I was there for 4 or 5 hours before anything else happened. So, more guys come out of the building. You all kind of group around picnic tables and you're waiting. Okay, well, where are you going? Let's say, oh, well, I'm going to the paratroopers. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to Nachal. Okay, I'm going to Nachal too. Okay, cool. So we're going to be in the same basic training together. Cool, awesome. And so you wait and you wait. I've heard of some people being there for days, actually, having to stay overnight at the induction center. But anyway, eventually you'll be like, okay, everybody going to this base for this basic training over here, and you line up, whatever, and you board buses. The base where I did basic training is in Arad, which is in the south. It didn't take us really long to get there, but you get out and you file in and everything, and this is where you learn how to stand in a formation for the first time. Excuse me. And this is when you get used to being yelled at. I mean, for me, I was already a little bit older. I was actually the oldest guy in my mazlul. Mazlul is it's a Hebrew word for training process, I guess. It's kind of hard to, but basically everything you go through from the minute you join the army until you finish training in whatever job you have, That's called Mazlul. So I was the oldest guy in our Mazlul. I was 24 years old. Actually, I was 23. I had not quite turned 24. No, I was 24. Yeah, I was 24. And I was the oldest. And so here I am, 24. I'm married. Just recently married. And I'm older than all these guys. I think the next oldest person was 21. He was an immigrant from Ukraine. Everybody else was 18, 19. And I was getting yelled at by 19 and 20-year-olds. The people who are training us are 19, 20 years old. Just kind of a weird shock for me. This is when you learn Matzavstein, which means second position, which is basically the starting position for push-ups. The first part of your training is called Trom Turonut, which means pre-basic training. It's about 3 weeks to a month. This is when they're just kind of trying to get you in shape, as they're going to focus a lot on physical fitness. Wearing the uniform, standing at attention, learning how to march a little bit. Nothing too hard. It's all very basic stuff for 3 weeks. And it all depends on what your job is. I was an infantryman. I was in an infantry brigade. That's one of the longer courses of training in the IDF. It's very thorough. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. But looking back, it was also a lot of fun. I made friends that I'll keep for life. I know that for a fact. And I learned things about myself that I wouldn't have otherwise learned. So there's that. Once basic training actually starts, they issue you rifles. At first, they're unloaded. They're usually older M16 variants. You don't carry ammo at first. They just give you the rifle to carry around to get used to the idea of being armed. It's not like in America. Most Israelis, when they turn 18 and join the army, have never handled a gun before. It's kind of funny because some of them are actually kind of afraid of it. You'll learn Krav Maga. You'll learn battlefield tactics, that type of thing. How to throw a grenade. That was particularly nerve-wracking for me. Because what they do is they make you hold it in your hand, and they tell you to pull the pin, the safety pin that keeps the fuse in place so it doesn't ignite. And so they'll tell you to pull the pin, and they'll tell you to wait until their instruction to throw it. And in the meantime, they're talking to you. They're trying to get you over the fear of handling a live grenade. So it's like, oh, okay, so where are you from? Oh, that's cool. So why are you here? Oh, okay, that's cool. Very good. Okay, throw it. And then you do, and whatever. Boom! It's kind of a cool feeling. I actually kind of miss blowing stuff up. It was kind of something I miss. A little pyro in me kind of misses that. You get to learn about, you learn quite a bit about ethics. They will actually sit you down and tell you various scenarios you may find yourself in and what to do in those scenarios to keep in accordance with not only international humanitarian law, but with the IDF's own internal code of ethics, which is actually much stricter than international humanitarian law. It will be made very clear to you that if you're ever in a morally compromising situation, that you are expected to disobey orders. For example, if you were ever ordered to harm a civilian intentionally, you're expected to disobey. That comes from a court case in 1956, which I'll go into later or in another video, maybe. Basic training for us was about 4 months. Yeah. At the end of it, and you're going to go on marches. First, starting off with no gear, just your uniforms and your boots, maybe 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. And then they'll start having you carry your rifle and your gear with you. And these marches, which are usually done at night, are going to get progressively harder and progressively longer to help you build up stamina. At the end of basic training, and every unit does this a little bit differently, you have what's called Masa Kumta, which means beret march. Every unit or corps in the IDF has its own unique beret color, so they can tell each other apart. So you have to pass what's called a beret march in order to earn your beret. For us, we marched. It was 70 kilometers. It was overnight. It has to be done overnight. And it ended at Masada, at the top of Masada, which is where our swearing in ceremony was. I don't remember most of it, to be honest with you. Just kind of go on autopilot, put one foot in front of the other. I do remember by the end, my feet were bleeding pretty bad. And most of us had to take a few days to recuperate before we could continue training. But yeah, well, once you do that, there's not much. I mean, the whole idea is it's a confidence building thing. Why would the Army make you march for miles and miles and miles through the desert just for kicks and giggles so you can wear a hat? The reality is that it's a confidence building measure. It's getting you to this idea where, okay, well, I'm stuck in this situation where I have to walk 20 kilometers. That's nothing. I've already walked 70 kilometers. That's kind of the idea behind it. And you'll also have to pass something called War Week. War Week is a combat simulation where you're going to take everything you've learned and you're going to apply it to a scenario. They're going to take you out, in our case, it was to the desert. It's always the desert. And they'll put you in a scenario. It's like, okay, we'll dig a trench. We're in a war there, and they'll shoot at you with blanks. You'll shoot back with blanks, of course. For that entire week, you're not going to have a whole lot to eat. They're going to try and recreate the stresses of what combat scenario. You're not going to sleep very much for that week. You're not going to eat very much. They're going to keep you awake with various things throughout the night for the most part. You might have a chance, 30 minutes there, 45 minutes there to doze off lightly. But the whole idea is to simulate conditions that you would experience in wartime. This is very valuable. I mean, I don't think this should ever be struck from the curriculum, so to speak. I think it later in our service, it came in very valuable to do this kind of thing. After about 3 days, about halfway through the week, you start hallucinating from having been awake for so long and having such a low caloric intake. But you finish with that, whatever, and then you move on to 16 more weeks of advanced training. You learn how to ride in helicopters, basically deploy in helicopters. They take you to this massive pre-built city in the desert called, what everybody calls Chicago. Kind of jokingly, it's a cinder block city, so you can simulate fighting in an urban environment. You learn how to call in airstrikes, artillery strikes, that type of things. And you basically take all the individual skills you learned in basic training and you combine them into a unit, how to use those skills in an infantry squad, platoon, battalion, that type of thing. At the end of all of this, you get what's called a warrior pin. Every battalion has a unique one or whatever that you earn, and you're certified. You're ready to go. You're 8 months into your military service, and you're ready to go. At least in the case of infantrymen. For most jobs, it's the training is not going to be this long. For us, it was immediately. We went 4 months getting bounced around to different border places in the north, the Golan, the Gaza border, places throughout Judea and Samaria. It was at that point we got to go to Protective Edge. We got to fight in Gaza. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about that. It's not that relevant, I don't feel, at this point. But, yeah, I mean, if you plan on moving here, you definitely want to serve in the IDF. You get a lot of societal benefits from it, and you're able to relate to the people more. A lot more. It's good for you. It's a character building thing. As horrible as it was at times, and it was. There are times when the way I describe my military service, my first round of, I'm actually still in the military, just in a different capacity. The way I would describe my mandatory service is It was the best, worst time of my life. You don't make a lot of money. You make peanuts, really, next to nothing, hardly, nothing you can really live on, which is why, you know, it's a conscript army, not a professional army. You will get in very good shape. You will learn a lot of discipline. You will learn a lot of people skills in dealing with people. You will learn a lot of leadership skills. You will be up and awake for days at a time. It does not matter what your job is. At some point or another, even if you're a cook, you're going to be so busy that you're not going to have time to sleep. It's just the reality. You will learn to maximize and appreciate sleep. I remember when I would come home on leave, the Army legally has to give you leave every 28 days if it's in peacetime. I'd come home for Shabbat or whatever, and I would sleep for 20, 22, 24, 26 hours straight on the couch. You're just so exhausted by the time you get home. You just want to shred your shoes, your boots, and just lay down, and that's it. You're dead to the world for a day or so. You will be uncomfortable. It will put you in positions where you're uncomfortable. If you're one of these people that likes to sleep in every day, I've got some news for you. This is going to suck. You're not going to get any, you're going to average probably between 4 and 7 hours of sleep per day. Maybe, if you're lucky. You're not going to have the most comfortable living accommodations. We were made to, for our basic training, we didn't sleep in barracks. We slept in tents, these big communal tents, and they were terrible. They were absolutely miserable. I mean, the IDF ruined camping for me. If you get sick, you're not always going to be able to call off. That sometimes not going to happen. You're going to have to go on guard duty with a fever or with the flu or something. We've all done it. The food is not bad, believe it or not. Most people would disagree with me on that. I actually kind of enjoyed it. Food was not terrible. There are actual meals like in a cafeteria on base that are cooked and hot or whatever, and there are also rations that they give you to carry with your gear you can eat. I actually kind of enjoy Army peaches now. I wish I could get them. These little canned peaches they would give you. They're pretty good. Yeah, and you're going to make friends. You're going to make lots of friends. And a lot of that comes from suffering together and being lonely, cold, sick, and tired, standing out in the rain. You can really bond with people that way. And you're going to meet people from all walks of life. I mean, the Army in Israel is the great equalizer. There are no Jews, there are no Arabs, there are no Druze, there are no gay, no straight, no white, no black, no poor, no rich, no Ashkenazi, no Sephardi. Everybody's just a soldier. And you're going to meet a lot of different people that way. You're probably going to learn some technical skills, some job skills, depending on what you do. Even if you're a clerk, you're going to learn how to be, highly organized. Technical skills is, if you're a mechanic, that type of thing. No matter what you do, you're going to learn something. I can promise you that. And yeah, if there's any follow-on questions or anything, just shoot me a message or comment on this video, and I will do my best to address them. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.